Reconvened at 9:34 p.m. We are now going to enter the deliberation and discussion phase. Ms. Miller will help guide us through this phase. Thank you, Ms. Miller.
Thank you. Okay, you sat and listened, participated, and now the time is to the of trying to make a choice, of narrowing it down. From my perspective, it would probably be easier if you had 4 candidates in the group, but I think that probably with each of you there were some strengths. There were some where one candidate may stick out more than another. We have a couple of choices, and I'm going to remind the board again that the deliberations must be done in public. Okay, we don't go back to the numbers. We don't go back to what I've done here on the board for you is basically I put the candidates in the same order that they interviewed in and just used initials. If that's good, we'll go with that. If you need me to do something else, so as we kind of go through. And there are a couple of ways we can do this, but there are a few choices that you need to make. Remember way back at the very beginning when we talked about the process, said we would get to this point after the initial interviews. You would be at one of 3 places. The first is that one candidate stood out, and as a board, as a majority of the board, you were comfortable with that one person and either bringing that one person back for a second interview or offering a contract and entering into contract negotiations. The second option would be to narrow the pool further, and in this case I would recommend narrowing it to no more than 2 and requesting back that the candidates come back and if they're interested in a second interview. That interview format would be a little bit different, somewhat scripted like tonight's was, but scripted in such a way that it was more specific to what is it that you need more information about to help you make the decision or to make the choice. So the questions may be different for the 2 candidates. Some of the questions probably would be the same, so we'd have to craft those questions. The third was that none of the 4 would work and that we go back to the drawing board. Okay. So let me start by trying to eliminate the choices. And can we take the third one off of the table for right now, that none of the candidates work, that you're not interested in any of them?
Yeah, I would say you could.
Yeah, I think that can be removed from the table.
Okay, so we're at option 1 or option 2. Okay.
That's correct.
Because if everybody says none of these people, don't believe any one of these 4 candidates would be a good leader for our district, then we don't need to deliberate any further than that. Okay. So I kind of thought we were at one of the 2. And right now, how many of you are not sure where you're at?
Kind of, yeah.
Okay, kind of in between. Okay. Then what I'm going to do is try and walk you through a process that hopefully will help you decide and kind of ask you to do some things individually, if you can, and see if we can narrow this down. And as you look through and recall through the 2 nights of interviews, we structured the questions under business and fiscal management. The first part was the introduction. I don't have that in here, but you can kind of put that to the end. Business and fiscal management, curriculum development evaluation, superintendent board relationships, leadership, management, and human resources. And then, if you think back to what basically you've talked in some format back and forth throughout from the very beginning when we started the search process, and I heard it again tonight and last night when you talk about some of the areas that are areas that you would like to grow further as a district, and one of those was student achievement. One was I put communications PR, that's kind of my language, but basically getting the word out and getting students back to Romulus schools, letting people know about the good things that are going on. And then the other one was the issue of finance. So what I want you to do is kind of in your mind put this realm together that you're looking for the best leader that's going to fit all of these categories. And that's the big piece, the fit. And fit means taking all of those together, but also in there is, I'll be honest, it's personality. It's how connected you believe the candidate will become, bless you, will become not only with you as a board as a whole, because there is going to be that relationship, but how well the candidate will connect with the community. Community being staff, students, and the community at large. So that's a heavy task. Heavy task. So we'll take some time, think about it. What my suggestion is, if you can, take the candidates, and since there's 4, if you can rank by yourself, them 4, 3, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 4, 3, 2, 1, whatever, 1 through 4, in each column, basically, where you think, in other words, who do you think in the first interview came out the strongest under business and fiscal management or having the expertise? Because I think you'll find, at least in my observation as I was taking my notes through also, that for me, each candidate had strengths in some different areas. Some had strengths in similar areas, some were very different. Their experiences are different. And if you want to add another column, you can talk about the experience, okay, that they'll be bringing to the job. Because those, again, it varied a little bit. But they're pretty close in terms of having experience. Again, I put experience.
Business,
Can you read off those top
Sure.
categories?
Business and fiscal management, curriculum development and evaluation, superintendent board relations, leadership, management, and human relations, I think it actually said in the questions. And then I took the 3 areas that you said were areas that you'd like to grow: communications, PR, finance, achievement. I've got experience here. If you want to do that, that's fine. If not, we can take it off, or fit. Have those fit through. These 2, this last one will kind of come later in terms of when you look at all of these, how do you think the person will fit? Okay. I'll give you some time.
Okay, what's after leadership and HR? Is that what HR and what?
Leadership, management, HR,
Okay, and what's next?
communications,
Okay.
then finance, achievement, because those are those 3 big areas. And then talked about experience. I was going through my head as to what we had set as criteria. And then, obviously, fit.
I should have went the other way.
Okay, so if you take some time.
Leadership management, what is it? Last 3, communications.
Communications, PR,
Right.
finance, achievement,
Achievement.
student achievement.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we actually have headings for 5 of them.
You have headings for these up to this point.
Yeah.
These 3 were the things that came out as areas that you're looking for strengths. There aren't really going to be questions. It's going to be as you think of the interviews as a whole. Did they hit these? Did they not hit these? Or where were their strengths? You know, where did they rank?
Fit.
Marie, I know it's been a long evening. I just want to make sure my logic is correct. If we use that grid for the 6 categories and the 4 candidates, assigning each candidate in the numerical order 1 through 4, then we would then, under the fit category, logic would then follow, the lowest score would be our number 1 choice, the second lowest score would be the
high.
Right.
low is good in this case.
It could be, it may end up that sometimes fit is just how you feel.
Yeah.
I apologize.
Oh, I see, I used fit as a
Fit
as
could,
a summary.
it can be, depending on how you're going to view it, but sometimes fit is just, it goes along with that feeling, that gut feeling, that comes into play in this a little bit, but it's based on all of that plus what else, and some of that is personality, some is the rapport, but give me a high sign when you're kind of ready to go through, and hopefully we'll have a painless way to report out.
I guess I am.
Board member still tabulating?
Yeah.
I'm done. Oh,
Yes, I'm slow. Thank you.
That's okay.
That's all right, you don't have to. I guess how about them Red Wing? No, I'm kidding.
I know, right?
Yeah, I think the paper scares.
that's pretty much what I did.
Yeah, we're running out of legal pads for some reason.
I have to bring my phone home.
Don't have an
Somebody
office
need
supply.
paper?
I got it.
The third one is,
Which one?
The third one, what does that say?
This
Nope,
one?
Nope, 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 back.
Oh,
Yeah.
superintendent.
Superintendent board
relationships.
relationships.
Oh. Gotcha.
I tried to put those in the order of the questions.
Yeah, well, that's what I thought, but I
Okay.
just, I could from here.
I
couldn't tell.
apologize, my
That's all right.
writing on the board, actually, it's not a long enough board. I used to have a classroom that had
'cause those
Uh,
fall underneath.
boards all the way around the room.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm just doing it for confuse myself.
I did mine by scores.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing too. I know, I'm sitting here looking at.
And
mine,
as
too.
we had, when we discussed the applications, we tried to keep it to the positives, the things that you thought, were the strengths. I'd like to keep these conversations in that same tone so that we talk about strengths.
Okay.
And just kind of as a reminder, if I think any of us are heading into some territory that might be problematic, I will stop. I will apologize ahead of time that I will interrupt, but I'll try and make sure I have a clarifying question as to which direction we're moving in, so. And again, what you're trying to do is determine from the 4 candidates which ones you think would be the best would be able to bring their expertise in those particular areas.
Is it possible that what we think can fit isn't gonna match what we put down as scores?
Yes. Yes,
Because I'm finding that.
yes. And we'll talk about that. That's why I'm not going to fit yet. One thing about this is not scientific. It's judgment.
Is judgment. Fit is judgment.
Fit is pretty much judgment. Before I take any as basically a poll from the board, we'll get a common definition of fit and common of what you're putting into fit. So let's worry about the other pieces first.
Marie, not to split hairs, but I do feel I need to say this about judgment. All of the categories theoretically are judgment, and the reason I say that is because we're 7 lay people, and we're making decisions based on the packets we read, based on a 60 or 75-minute conversation, and quite frankly, our intuition, our gut. So, you know, going with your statement that this is not scientific, I think every one of us here is trying to make the best judgment call we can for the leadership of the district. And, you know, so
It's
not a cut and dry numbers thing.
No,
That's-
it is not, and I am doing and if it looks like the numbers don't tell us anything, we'll look at it a different way. Because what I am doing is I am forcing you to rank order them, okay? That not everybody can be a 1, and you might want to give everybody a 1 in every category, but not everybody can be a 1, so it's a comparison. And it's not just your gut feeling or your judgment. You know, don't forget, you do have the data that you've looked at the packets and looked at all of that information, again, compared to the criteria the board set originally, based on the board's consensus and the input that you did get from the community. The other piece is the references. I have checked both listed references and non-listed references, and I can tell you to the best of my knowledge, there's nothing that would prevent any of them from performing the duties of superintendent in Romulus. So, you know, the references checked so far.
Ready.
All right.
Is everybody ready to start
I
the
can be.
discussion?
Okay, what I'm going to ask you to do is tell me how many of you, of where you put your 1s. I'm only looking for 1s, not your 2, 3, or 4. Okay, so first choice. For business fiscal management, how many 1s for candidate 1? 4? Let me check again. How many for business, for candidate 2? 2. Candidate 3? Candidate 4? I like when that comes up to 7. Curriculum development and evaluation. How many 1s? For candidate 1?
I'll put it down there. Oh, I'm
Oh,
sorry.
oh,
I'm sorry.
sorry.
I'm sorry. I thought
Yes?
you were on a different one. I'm
Okay.
sorry.
Let me check again. Curriculum development and evaluation, 4. Okay, for candidate number 2. Candidate number 3. Candidate number 4.
Can't be.
No.
Okay, let's try again. Candidate number 1, curriculum development and evaluation.
Oh, we're doing it all over again?
Yep,
For
we're
number
doing it
1,
again.
right?
For number 1.
Okay.
Okay, so you ranked 1, so that was 4. Okay, candidate number 2, 3, I don't have anybody else, right?
Nope.
Okay. Superintendent board relationships. 1 for, candidate 1,
Me too.
candidate 2, candidate 2, candidate 3, Candidate 4. Leadership, management, and human resources.
Oh, you're asking for number
We're
one?
looking for the number ones, the ones you ranked 1.
Okay.
Candidate number 1. Candidate number 2. Candidate number 3. Candidate number 4. Okay, now, based on the answers, the information that you received through the interview process, along with those questions, and then the other questions that they gave at the beginning, at the end, and the ones that didn't quite fit into those categories, the areas that you're looking for strength in and leadership in, okay, so being able to promote that in the community, is communications, finance, and then student achievement. Okay, so again, hopefully, did you rank those 1 through 4 again? Okay.
I think so.
How many ones for candidate 1? How many ones for candidate 2? How many ones for candidate 3? And then candidate 4?
Somebody didn't vote.
Did I miss one? Let's try this again. Communications for candidate 1. I missed it. I apologize. Candidate 2 is still 3, and then candidate, okay, and then candidate 4. At this point, as a board, are you comfortable in eliminating candidate 3?
Yes, I would say.
I am.
Yeah. Yes.
Is there anybody who is not comfortable with eliminating a candidate? Okay, so you narrowed it a little bit. Okay, with finance, how many ones for candidate 1?
I thought that was achievement.
Finance is next. You want to do achievement next? I can do it that way.
Oh, finance
kinda
was,
combined
the
them.
first one was
Okay.
business management.
No. This is the these are the 3 areas.
Gotcha.
Okay? These are the
Gotcha.
3 areas that you said are the areas that you're looking for someone to bring strength because they're going to have to be the areas that they're going to need to work on. The achievement,
And finance.
communications, PR,
I had it, I
and the
just
finance.
didn't, I didn't write finance,
Or
I have
plus.
a dollar sign on my.
Okay.
Oh, I think this is all
Sorry.
3 together.
Yeah.
All 3 together or
Nope.
separate?
Nope, separate.
Finance.
What is it?
Oh,
Well, can you start over? 'Cause
Sure.
I have mine in different columns.
Okay. From
I-
just these
okay.
last 3, right?
Okay, now what's
Yeah, I
the one
didn't
you're
do
doing
them
right now?
separate. I did
Okay, I'm going to do communications, PR.
Okay.
Which of the remaining 3 candidates, which one, or do you believe might be able to do the best job for you?
Okay.
Okay, candidate number 1. Candidate number 2. And candidate number 4. Okay, with the area of finance, having the strength in the area of finance, or at least through the first interview, giving that as the strength. Candidate number 1. Candidate number 2. Candidate number 4. Okay, in achieve,
Sorry, you know what, I was a 4. I'm
you're a
sorry.
4?
I was looking at the wrong one.
Got that right? Okay, then achievement. Providing the leadership for achievement based on what you heard One's for candidate 1.
Can you give me a minute,
Mm-hmm.
please?
I'm kidding.
And know that the numbers would probably come out differently if I did 1s and 2s. Went back and counted the 2s. So that's why I stuck with just 1s for right now.
Student achievement, right?
Yes, yes.
So basically, we have this question. Breaking it down. You asked the first question.
Yeah, that's it.
Level playing field.
I'm ready. I don't know if everybody else is ready.
Anybody still tabulating?
Oh, ready?
I'm ready.
All set?
Okay, for student achievement. Okay, a 1, 2. For student achievement for candidate 2. 3. For student achievement for candidate 4. Do you want me to do experience or not? Do you feel that they're,
I think they're all experience.
They're all equal. I mean,
That
they
they-
all had,
Well,
They're all done.
They'll be
No.
no, they have different kinds of experiences.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They do, they come from different, they have different numbers of years of experience and positions. They have different,
Educational backgrounds different.
educational backgrounds are a little bit different. What their teaching experience, they all have teaching experience. They may be a little bit different in their experience. So if you want to leave that off for right now,
Yeah, we can.
Yeah.
I don't think
and
that's gonna help.
we can come back.
Being honest.
Because it went from a seasoned superintendent, with many years of experience to no superintendent experience. So the level, is a little bit different there. Okay. My next question is, okay, looking at this and kind of going back through in your own mind, the question is, do you feel confident enough individually that one candidate, kind of resonated without a doubt that that's the leader that you feel that you're ready to go without a second interview?
I am, especially looking at the scores there.
Because if that would be the case, then it would be select, and you can do a vote, you can do, or we can do it a straw poll, however you prefer. Before you settled on that, it would have
I
to be a
didn't hear
vote.
anybody else's opinion.
I would like a second interview
I would like a
myself.
second
I mean, I like all the candidates that are left. I mean, I think they all did well, but I mean, if we could develop some more specific questions, I think,
I'm
that are
thinking
pertinent to our
I think we
district.
need to do
Yeah.
And in order for me,
Maybe-
I'm going to be honest, in order for me to do that, I'm going to need a lot of help from you, because I need to know what is it about the candidate that either they did not answer well enough on the first one through, or what's the scenario, basically, because we can do the second interview based on scenarios, but I need to know what the scenario, what are you looking for? So we may have to have that conversation.
Okay.
So, not necessarily, picking a candidate. How many of you would be willing to say that there's one candidate that you would be comfortable with a second, perhaps a second interview with that candidate, but you want to narrow it to one? How many
Narrow
of
it
you
to
want to
two,
narrow
you
it to, no, how many of you want to narrow it to one? Okay.
Be picking?
So I don't see a majority of the board there, so can we narrow it to two candidates? Because the reality is, on a second interview with a pool of 4, it's going to have to narrow a lot, because, or the candidates may say that they're not interested in interviewing a second time through. So just so that you know that, because very often on a second interview, the candidates will say, if I'm not a serious contender, because you're going to be at the same point. If you have 3, you're going to be at the same point of, how do you narrow it then?
Right.
So, you're going to have to whittle it down. So, going through individually, this is kind of where it fell. You can see that there's no, some clear strengths, and then obviously so we can talk about the candidates as to why, and and what your feelings are, or what it is that you, in all 3 of them, what information is it that you need in order to make the decision? I guess that's a tough question, but that's what I need to know. What information do you need that you don't have?
Are you asking for those questions now?
Well, even in the area, what is it, I guess what I'm asking is,
Is it going to change anything?
yeah, because we can craft a whole nother set of questions, but unless we pinpoint what is it that you can't make the decision on, even between 2, what is it that you need more information?
Well, and you want us to keep the conversation on strengths.
But it would be, what do you?
This is one of the harbingers of the Open Meetings Act, because although every candidate has flaws, and every candidate certainly has strengths, but there's one candidate that put off such a front that they were uber qualified. If that's the case, why isn't their district trying to keep them? And I can't overcome that. If you want to call it suspicion, if you want to call it gut feeling, if you want to call it intuition, whatever. And again, I'm going back by the numbers, looking at this. There's nothing within the application process, because we can ask all the questions we want, but we have to go back to the original, how they present themselves, what their credentialing allegedly is, and those things. There is nothing new that could be brought to the table that personally is going to change my ranking, and I'm saying if we just drop it to 2 candidates, if you look at the majority numbers there, they kind of speak to who that second candidate's going to be.
Right.
There's not going to be a consensus.
Mine's fit.
Mine is, mine.
Yours
mine
is what?
comes down
Is
to
fit.
Yeah.
Mine's fit also.
Mine
Then-
comes absolutely down to
Okay,
fit.
okay.
And
Then let's
And
talk
see,
about, then let's,
For me, it's finance. To me, we have to have a balanced budget. But for me, her, number 2's position, start with a 0 budget and go with your necessity, and build up, instead of us like taking from building down. To me, that's the way it should be, that we do our necessities first.
Number 2.
And And then maybe
Yes, it
we'll
was.
say that, well, this is more important than having a police officer in the elementary schools. But to me, that's the way you look at it, necessity, 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 so that you're taking, I don't know, that's how I saw it.
Cindy, I agree with you on that, so to me, that was,
That was my-
one of her strengths.
Yeah,
to
that
me.
was my one.
Okay.
But that
Yeah.
wasn't, I mean, but there were some, to
There
me,
was
there were other
some-
things
And
that
she was
offset
heavy in
something.
technology. What I didn't like was that she was afraid that her suggestions would be a bigger change than we would be ready for. And so that was her, like at the end. And so that was sort of, for me, that was the drawback.
Okay, let's talk about fit. Maybe if we go through, let's look at fit and see where those numbers fall, and then come back to, because what I'm hearing is that, Ms. Kraut, what I'm hearing is that at least for the other two candidates, you need more information in terms of them with budget, how they would, how a budget would actually be built or whatever, so more detail on budget, and maybe even with that one. So let me hold that.
Basically have shown us how, the one wants to eliminate from the top and say, take these off. The other one says you build from the bottom with necessities. I mean, they just have two different ways of looking at it.
Are you confident that both could do it? Could build a
I don't
budget?
like the way I
Okay.
don't
So
like
it's a-
the suggestion of the way they're doing it, so I would like to find a different way. And I
Okay.
would like a new idea, maybe.
So in this case, it may be fit. What person fits, or budget is not.
Majority rules, and I understand that.
I'm having an issue because I know people can interview a certain way, but I'm having a problem with my perception.
Okay, let's talk about
Because I
fit.
think if I do a second interview, the second interview is gonna give me the same results.
Oh,
But I still have my personal opinion about
Okay.
that.
I have a question also. We're looking at how we rank these people, and I'm looking at 7 or 8 different categories how I rank these people 1, 2, 3, and 4. Some got 1s, another person got a 1, someone else got a 1. If we have a second interview, why do we have to put them in these categories? Why can't each board member just say who they want on the whole overall interview instead of
Okay.
going by this, because this tells me nothing. I
Well,
mean, just because this
it-
person scored 1 in a finance
It
category.
tells you nothing, but it tells me that there wasn't a unanimous of, without any discussion,
Right, I
one
give you
candidate.
that.
So that's what I was looking for.
Okay.
Remember, you asked, how do we talk about it without really, going into the detail and going, that's basically, so that kind of gives you an idea.
Is it possible we could have an active scenario? Is that possible?
For questions?
Like, for instance, if we were to get together and we created a scenario, and we asked them in regards to, since one of the issues that is on the table is finance. So then we would have our finance director come up with some kind of scenario whereby we give both candidates both the same information and see how they both come to a solution for that information. Then bring them to an interview, ask them what the solution was that they came to and why they came to that solution.
You can do that, okay? One of the things with that, though, is if you're asking them to do that on their own, and that's the only thing you're going to use, remember, you don't know how they arrived at the information.
No, I don't, but what I'm saying, if we brought them both in, we brought them into a room, so therefore they don't have any help from anybody else. They
Oh.
can't bring any cell phones in, anything
you're
like that.
talking about
You set them down in
like
a
a
room.
written-
Right, and then you have them go through the information. You present both candidates with both information of what it is that we are suggesting. They do this. And then what you do is you find out, are you really what you say you are on paper? Let's see, let's put you to work. Let's see what you can do.
We could create that scenario.
It's just
but
an idea.
the business office couldn't, because that would be a conflict, because
is.
one of the candidates
This
is an
is
internal
internal.
candidate, and you'd be asking them to make a scenario basically for their own boss.
And-
And that, if I was our business manager, I'd say thanks, but no thanks. I'm not getting involved in that. That's a Board of Education decision.
And I don't know, I
So we
mean,
could create a scenario, absolutely, if that's what the board decided to do, but I wouldn't bring the subordinate
And-
staff in on it.
and that would be my recommendation of not doing that. The other piece is that, again, would have to approach the candidates and let them know exactly what the style would be, because I haven't done one quite that way. And I don't know what the reaction would be. Because in some decisions, and let me kind of give you as an example, if you asked me to do that, my decisions when I did budget were not, and I'm looking at budget wasn't done by me alone, and I was a finance director, so I had that expertise, but there are an awful lot of, when you see something on paper, what does it mean? So
And
it's
that's what
more
it
about
would-
process.
Right, but it would also be a situation where we can literally not put anything where we're initializing anything. Let's spell it out, what it is. We're not asking them to add numbers up.
No.
We're asking them to come to a conclusion and tell us how they would rank things
Okay.
based upon what it is that we're in need
Okay.
of.
I think maybe the better, and it may just be to ask them to come prepared to be able to detail how they would do a budget. You know,
That may be, I'm sorry,
Yeah,
that might
yeah.
be what I'm asking
Yeah,
for.
I think that's what you're asking
Okay.
for, not basically the
Right.
process.
Right.
Strategies on.
That's
Yeah,
what
that-
I'm talking about.
Okay. That's what I kind of thought you were headed to, was the process of how would they do this, and they may not need.
And if the candidate didn't want to do it, then to me, that would mean that they don't want the job. Because
No,
if you want
no,
the job,
about process, it's one thing. With specific numbers, it's another. That's what I
Right.
was- Okay, let's kind of go from here, and let me ask you this. I'll remember the budget more detail. Take out the headings. And it does come down to fit, okay? You have you've narrowed down, and you said you're comfortable with eliminating one candidate. Narrowed it to 3. The question is, can you narrow it to 1 or 2? Okay. I think what I basically heard was 2. My question again will be, then what more information do you need about both or either candidate? 1 is budget, okay, in developing budget.
Don't we need to determine who those two are going to be?
Yeah, we do. Yes, we do. If there are going to be 2, or if there,
I think
if
all
you,
three of them had strengths in different things,
Yeah,
though,
they
that's the
did.
thing.
That was
Yeah,
the
but
tough part.
again, it comes down to fit.
Comes down to fit for me. And if that were the case, then the 2,
Yeah, that's where I'm at too.
that,
Well, I guess poll everybody on where they are with fit. And at least that'll
Okay, let's
generate
try fit.
conversation.
whew, okay.
It's not easy.
Nope.
no,
It's not easy, so.
no.
It's not
Seats
easy.
just got a little warmer.
It's just not an easy process.
Well,
But we will get through
and,
it. We will get through it.
yes, and understand that
Everybody's never.
it's sometimes more difficult when there are internal candidates involved, because what you're not, and, you know, and again, listening to what information, you know, so it's basically your judgment call. Question is, okay, you have 3 candidates, you were able to eliminate 1. Let me ask you to rank your top 2. Let's see what that does. Top 2.
Just
fit?
with regard to fit.
Fit or with the rest, because you kind of know where the rest of it fell. But let's just talk about fit, your top 2. Okay, so you don't have to give them in 1-2 order. You can give it in 2-1 order. It doesn't make any difference to me. So just whatever. So the order that you're giving the names doesn't make any difference. Okay, top 2. Does anybody want to start?
My top 2 are the first and third candidate.
Okay, so 1 and 3.
Same.
I can't, I'm
Can't
looking
narrow.
at, one has a good one in business, one's curriculum, another one, I can't,
Okay,
I can't give you 2 out of 3. yet.
okay.
I'd say the first 2.
1 and 3.
1 and this one.
Yeah.
1 and 2.
I see 2. I see 2.
Which two? That's
Just-
what she's asking.
Just the one, the
Oh,
JM.
just number 2.
Oh, just 2. You only want 1 vote. Okay. It didn't help.
Point made.
Do you have one that John hasn't put his feet in?
No, because of the fit. I
Right,
mean,
and
if I'm
I'm
looking
not-
at a fit, I
Yeah.
think when one talks about the level playing field, the other one talks about developing programs we don't have. It's hard to say because out of the 8 things we're doing, I'm mixed in all of them, and they all, one had a better one than the other one, and I can't pick one out of the other right now. I don't want to make this choice and regret it in 8 weeks or 9 weeks, and I can't do that in an hour after an interview.
So are you saying you want to interview all 3 again? You can do that, or at least offer interviews to all 3.
I almost feel like we'd be back at the drawing board.
I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know, it's how we devise the questions too. I mean, if we can get away from that standard question that you found all these on the internet, where I found all these questions on the internet myself, and develop a few questions that are for our district. I mean, I went on the internet, looked for superintendent questions, and these were all the ones that are on there,
Wow.
basically.
Well, these didn't come off of the internet,
But I'm
but
saying
they,
in a
as I said,
derivative
they're
form.
they're standard
I mean,
areas of and that's why I'm asking what more information do you
Like
need?
a hot topic right now, I would like to ask a question like, what about this early college? What do you see this developing for us? And then what else we have? And then some other questions.
I'm not sure that's
Candidate number
a
2
question
took
we
a
can
ding
answer
at the
tonight.
early college by
But that's-
saying that's great
but-
if you only want to service a small number of children.
And that's why I would like to come up with at least 8 or
She
9
didn't spend 8
questions.
weeks in countless meetings making sure we
But-
addressed as many kids as possible.
But if, and I think it's a point well taken, and there are a couple of options for that next interview. One, and I've done it before, is given the candidates the questions before. When they come in, they are equally prepared because they have the questions ahead of time. Okay, now, some of that goes to how much work do they do and how do they present. I'll be honest, you may be at the same point after a second interview, but, you'll find that you can feel that you've done your due diligence. There must be something right now that you feel is missing from one versus the other. I mean, or, you can, it's up to the board. It's going to take a motion from the board in terms of, and I think that's where you need to, basically make a decision that, and offer a motion that you'll invite 1, 2, or 3 of these candidates back for a second interview. And before that second interview comes up, then sitting down and actually, because in terms of specific questions, the first interview is designed to give you a feeling about the strengths of
Maria, I'm gonna-
candidates overall.
Excuse me, I'm going to interrupt you 1 second. What we're passing around now is just to pass them out. They were topic sheets prepared for tonight. In case somebody is entertaining a motion, these are two different scenarios, and there's only 2 blanks on one of them, but feel free to add a third. Again, this is just a discussion, but these are topic sheets that were prepared in case we went that route tonight. Sorry, Marie, go ahead.
So normally, so that the first interview is to get basically the philosophies, the feelings, the thoughts. Second interviews are usually more specific, and we put those into the first interview, and that was where why your first interview was a little different, where it asked for give examples of. And in several of those, I'll be honest, some of the candidates missed it. They didn't give the specific, they talked generally, they did not talk specific. So usually the difference between the first interview and the second is you're still talking about some of the same things, but you're asking for specific examples. Okay? In one district, when I did the interview, we asked the candidates to pick a topic of their choosing for the district, of where they saw the district going, and to prepare a board presentation. The style was up to them, what they needed, all they had to tell me ahead of time is if they were using PowerPoint, what they need. They came up with that, and we kind of saw a depth and breadth between two candidates. There are some different ways to approach that second interview. I can't guarantee that you'll feel that you have any more information than what you have right now. I mean, I hope you will. But if what's stopping, or the difference between, that you can't tell the difference between the three candidates, or can't select between the three candidates because there's missing pieces of information, like maybe the person, didn't give you as much information, we can solve that. If it's that the three people offer strengths in three different areas and you want all three, 5 more interviews isn't going to solve that. So I guess that's what I'm trying to get to, is that what the problem is? Because definitely, and I'm going to speak, from my perspective, different personality types,
Most
Oh,
definitely.
definitely.
different styles, different approaches. So, and that's where a lot of that comes. And I talked about different backgrounds, so their strengths are, so you have to judge that versus on whatever other strengths you have in the district, where will that fit? So it's not just about, I like this person better, or I don't like this person. It's not about person, and somehow you have to remove yourself from who it is. It's what job can they do.
Can I ask you another question, Marie? And I'm sorry if this puts you on the spot. I know you had communicated with the board because the posting did not include the salary range.
Yes.
And I know you contacted those applicants out of the 18 that were beyond the salary range that the board had specified, and
Correct.
all of those that were beyond said they were still interested at that salary
Yes.
range. Am I correct so
Yes.
far? One of these candidates has NA under preferred salary.
Hey, look.
You absolutely can.
I did not have a conversation with that candidate.
So we don't even know if this particular candidate's willing to work for the compensation that we have determined as a board we were willing to offer for this position. Because they chose to put NA on their professional application.
I saw that, I just thought it meant it didn't matter.
Right, I
Take
did too, that
whatever.
wasn't her priority.
Right.
I believe
And you won't know
that
until you
I
talk to her.
mentioned
Yeah, but you
to
won't know
each of the 4 candidates what the proposed salary range was. But I'm not going to, I didn't have a conversation with the
sorry.
candidate. So, and I apologize.
More than that.
I mean, it's something we can still inquire about, correct?
Yes. I mean,
And
I
then, like
can,
with
I
Ms.
can make
Bowles
that
says,
phone,
mean,
I can
you-
make
you
that phone call.
You call 3 of them, and if one does not want to go through a second one, that narrows it down to 2.
Yeah, I mean, it's a way
And
to
I
look
did
at
like
it.
the fact that the number 3 had
Okay,
some
for
blue
me,
collar workers.
Again, for me, it's the fit, so I don't mind going through the second interviews. I don't know what questions that I specifically would need to ask, because, I mean, I'm just truthful, I don't really know. If there's anything different that I didn't see or I didn't get in the first interview, so to me, it's basically my gut feeling of how I feel the person would fit into the district, which is important for Romulus. So it's just my my opinion. But I'm willing to go through the second interview. I don't have any problem with it, if that's what the board chooses to do.
Kind of what you,
You know, 'cause
we
it
need to
might
do
be-
it, we need to do it.
You know, maybe some might pop up.
I got a couple questions myself.
Do you want to recess for like 3 minutes and want me to call and see if that candidate is interested at the salary range?
I mean,
Should we do that before we decide, okay, so have we decided that we're gonna bring those 3 back for a second interview?
right.
Because there's no sense to getting her false hope, asking her if she'll accept something if we're not gonna.
Right.
I'm just, so
Yeah, I think
what
I
else?
agree with Cheryl. I think we
Yeah.
should determine
We need
whether
to-
we're
I mean,
gonna.
I'd like to have
And I will
information.
tell you, my assumption is that that they would accept the salary that, but I would definitely ask that question specifically of each candidate before they came back for a second interview. And would advise the board of that ahead of time, but,
Well, and, not to belabor a point, and, there's 7 people on this board for a reason, because there's 7 very diverse, divergent opinions, and 7 different personalities. I'm gonna, use Cheryl's comment about for me, it's about fit and what I think is right for Romulus. Romulus is sorely lacking in yeah, we have budgetary issues. Yes, we have, some, declining enrollment in things. But I think a lot of those issues stem from the animosity, the anger, the bitterness that has stirred up in this community over the last several years. And I think there's a healing process that has begun.
Right.
And
And
it had to do over
and
the
I'm gonna
fit of
say
the
what I,
superintendent.
yeah, and
Basically.
I'm gonna say, I'm gonna put it out there and say what is going through my head right now. We're in a transitional phase right now, but our internal candidate is literally walking on eggshells, not knowing what drama's gonna happen behind this table. We gotta get our house in order if we're going to have anybody leading this district. And, this transitional stuff, under any circumstance, whether it's a building principal, whether it's a teacher, whether anybody that's in a transitional phase, it is like a bird with its wings clipped because, oh, do I do too much? Oh, because if they're looking for that job, they don't want to upset the apple cart. And again, I sat through these interviews, as we all did, and I had somebody come in here, and it wasn't necessarily the answers of the particular candidate. It was the tonality that candidate used that it shut me down. I don't care what that candidate has to say because I don't feel that candidate is a fit for this district because of the tonality and the attitude. We just departed with somebody that had that kind of tonality and attitude. And I will be doggoned if I'm going to sit here and bring in somebody else that's got the exact same tonality and attitude problems that we just said goodbye to December 31st. So I said my piece. I think it's about fit, and I think it borders on us not being fair, quite frankly. If there's somebody that, we're going to be politically divided upon, and we're going through the motions simply for going through the motions of another interview, when we can't even come to consensus on who we're going to interview, that's a waste of these candidates' time, and it makes us look a fool.
Well, I disagree on that aspect because no disrespect to our internal candidate, but you took an interim job and that's not expired yet. And we have that time to pick somebody. And because I'm not going to be a fool in a year and a half when the public is back out there wondering if we picked the wrong person or the right person. And I'm not going to do it on a whim. I'm not going to do it on one interview when I get to digest it for 16 minutes. it was 20 questions on potential future of this school district. And nothing against our candidate, but she stepped in that interim position knowing what the consequences could be. She may get it or she may not get it. And she could have stepped back and kept her regular position. And I'm not, whether I pick her or not,
You just wanna be
I
sure.
can't make that decision yet. But I'll support whatever the board decides, but I would like the chance to, like you said, if the one candidate had an attitude at a second interview, she still has that attitude, or does she clean it up and come in different, or he or she? So, I mean, I think we just devised not 20 questions, but
Oh, it would have to be much
some
briefer.
spike, maybe 7 questions, maybe one board member submits a question each. We are the one hiring, and it is on our conscience and it's on our decision, so why don't we all kind of submit a site-specific question that maybe pertains to our district?
Thank you. That's what I think.
Not pertains to an internet question on what the MASB
Right.
decides, or a superintendent, something that we can cavalier some people maybe and get ideas and say, okay, here's a good question I need to formulate for my question as John Thie, board member, Cheryl Buckley, board member, and then my conscience will be clear that that question's answer what I.
And just
came
for
up
the
with.
record, some of the questions in the first interview did come from
Right.
board members, and
Right.
I took some of the off the original draft. When board members
Right.
gave me those questions, they were added. So just, so that they weren't all MASB questions.
Yeah, but, I mean, maybe we submit that question to you for
Yeah,
approval,
Well,
or
and
you
that would-
clean up the
that
question
would-
we
That
submit.
would be, my request,
Yeah.
is that you would submit them to me.
Can we ask, how do you feel about privatization?
Sure.
Yeah, that would be a good question.
Yeah, why not? It
Right.
pertains to our district right now.
Right.
And you got to get it out there, because they're going to have to say whatever.
And if they say they don't understand what privatization means, then that tell you right there that might not be the candidate. You don't even know.
I mean,
I would.
No, I'm just saying.
I would venture to guess that all three of those know what
I
it
say
means.
no, but yeah,
Just
I
being
mean,
honest about it.
yeah. I mean, I would just like to formulate a second interview, then I would have no problem of
So then
submitting a
it
name.
sounds like it's all 3.
Yeah, I would like to give them all another benefit of the doubt to come in and get another view of them.
I just know from, like I said earlier, it's fit for me.
It's
I
fit.
just,
It's fit, right?
I mean, I feel like each one of those that are listed there are qualified and
Right.
capable of doing the job.
Yeah.
I think, if anything, our questions need to be geared toward how they're going to fit in the community, how they're going to fit in with the staff, how they're going to fit in with the board. Because I think that those things are important things moving forward. And like Rob said, I mean, we are in a healing process finally, but I don't want to reopen a wound because somebody comes in and totally unravels what has been worked on and established.
And
So.
I agree
Talking
with
about
Rob said,
reopening wounds, sorry, John.
Okay.
But, and again, the 7 board member, 7 question thing, I'm fine with. And please don't take this as anything personal or me telling you what to ask, Sandy, but I would be hesitant to put any candidate on the spot asking them about privatization, knowing the drama that's going on in this district. That's not fair to put them, because if they, they may feel that they're going to play to a certain political thing, and then that's going to create a dissension within
Right.
our own employees, and that's going to set whatever candidate up
For failure.
in a hot seat. Well, not necessarily
Especially when
for
everybody
failure, but
knows
in a
it's on
trick
the
bag,
horizon.
because then they'll be the fall guy.
Or the discussions are
And,
happening.
it's a decision that this board is investigating.
The question
And-
could be phrased in a way.
That's what I was just about to
Could
say.
be phrased in a way of your experience with privatization. I mean, if you're.
Personally, I wouldn't even go there.
I wouldn't even.
I would just
I'd just stay far, far away.
stay far away.
Only because you don't want to set somebody up for failure. in the beginning. To me, that's,
Well, and that only seems like you're asking them that. The people say, okay, well, they're asking a new superintendent coming in if they know about privatization, so they must have already decided they're gonna privatize.
right.
You know, that's kind of what, you know, since they already think we made up our mind anyway.
Well,
So that's
and
what they
there's,
would-
and
that's
there's
what they
some
would
that
say.
think that
I
the
mean, that's what
internal
they would-
candidate
they
is
would
the
say.
one spearheading the discussion that we're currently having.
I mean, so maybe the question instead of, you know, would you privatize would be, could you give us,
phrase it.
you know, more specific
Ideas of how,
strategies,
strategy
you
is
would-
how you would reduce a budget.
Yeah.
That would least
question,
impact.
too.
I mean, I can word some questions for you if I know
Yeah.
where you want me to
There could be
head.
an error in that candidate's reply to something, but do all three of these candidates know that we are filing a
budget.
deficit budget? Because the
one
one
mentioned it.
candidate didn't sound like he was aware that that's, or they
No,
were
it was-
aware that we were going in that direction.
That's the candidate that we eliminated, and that
Yeah,
would be
they-
one of the reasons that I supported eliminating that
Okay.
candidate.
Yeah, because
Because,
she said we were in a good budget.
yeah,
And I was like, okay, because I mean, are they aware that we're going in that direction?
Yeah.
Oh, gone. Not
They know what
going.
they're stepping
Wow,
into?
yeah, gone.
What?
Do they know what they're
The
stepping
bridge has
into?
been crossed.
Well, I know that two do for sure,
Yeah, I mean,
because
yes.
I've had the conversation
Right.
with them. You know, I believe that all three candidates, you know, these three candidates did their homework and got, you know, because I mean, I got a lot of questions as to, you know, what information was or was not available on the transparency report and some other things, so.
Because our transparency report honestly does not show that at this point, because we're
That we-
talking about
right.
next year's budget.
I think one thing I was,
It's in my eye.
on the very last page where we have questions from the audience, and we had no public to ask any questions to these candidates.
Well, we
That
had
asked
two
any
public.
questions.
Residents,
two
I
you
mean,
didn't ask any, well, she's a resident.
yeah. I meant like
Would I
the
be
norms.
putting you guys on the spot?
The
and asking
norms.
for your input?
Okay, let's bring this back under control. But I
know what
guess
I mean.
I need a couple of things.
Non-workers.
Okay,
Okay.
first of all, we need to figure out
We're not on.
How many candidates?
if you're doing who you're bringing back, then that's up to the, and you know, and as I said from the beginning, you know, it's your decision. You have, at the end of the day, you have to be comfortable with the decision. So, if it takes 2 more interviews, then I certainly would not be the person that would say don't do that. So just
One more.
understand that piece. But the critical piece, if you're really going to get out of an interview what you need to know, and it may be different for each of you, you know, as to what is it, why you're between, you know, 2 candidates. What is it about the one that didn't? And so let me kind of get some information from you as individuals, and so that may take me a little bit. But again, if you have a question, or if you have 2 questions, or if you have an area, that probably, for some of you, may be a better choice that you just, you know, you don't know. It's like, yeah, I'm just not comfortable with with knowing that the candidates, whichever or all, you know, told us enough, or we gave them enough opportunity to talk about finance. At least will kind of narrow it for me in terms of where you want to go. I have a couple of recommendations after you tell me if you're going to a second interview or not, and then we'll talk about what that interview will look like. So let's.
Can I ask a question?
You certainly
'Cause,
may.
I know for me, I like the way candidate 2 seemed to have a personal relationship with a lot of kids, but I'm wondering, as a superintendent, if the job is more that she has the relationship with the teachers, with the principals, and they have the relationship with the teachers, and the teachers have the relationship with the kids.
That was what
That's one of the things I caught on as well, because that's to me out of the wheelhouse of a superintendent.
Right.
To say they want to go in and guest teach a class, or they want to go in and micromanage, because to me that's what it sounded like, is some micromanaging from at least one of the candidates. And I don't know that that's in their wheelhouse, you know, especially given the global picture. You know, matter of fact, one of the candidates used a phrase of Google Eye View, and that's what the CEO needs to be. I agree with you. You know, I think that everything has its, for lack of a better phrase, a pecking order.
Okay, one of the other recommendations I would make between now and the next interview is that board members, and you can develop a process of how you want, anybody to report, basically if you have not made those phone calls for those references, because there are a number of them listed. In fact, I think one of the candidate probably gave you a list of about 34 people to call, okay? But again,
comment.
it is okay to call any, as board members, to call any other board member, of another board. Usually the board president is who you usually, do that. But I wouldn't have everybody calling the same people. But if you have not done any of those calls, that will, because I can tell you that from my reference checks, not all of the candidates may have, the perception of the candidates outside is not necessarily the perception that I had of, that they gave me, that everyone else would have. You understand what I'm trying to say? That I think with each one, I was able to find someone who said, well, you know what, they're not as strong in this area. Okay, so none of them were perfect. I guess that's what I want to say.
Well, they all
And,
have strengths and weaknesses.
And I got that from some of the calls that I got, that not perfect, but sometimes the person isn't liked because of what they had to do, not afraid to do the job. So that, you have to take that into consideration. You have to take it with, I always say, take a reference with a grain of salt, because again, when I do my calls, I'm often not calling the listed references. I'm calling around for experience. And I actually have a conversation with the candidates, probably a little more one-on-one. So we have a couple of options for that second.
Just-
Mr. Chair, I just want
Yeah,
to throw
go
in
ahead.
something. What we did before is that when we contacted the board, like the president would contact the board president, or the treasurer would contact the treasurer of that board.
They're
Or,
equal?
contact their equal of that board, and a trustee would call a trustee of that board to get, okay, so tell me about this candidate, trying to get some,
And if
so
you-
that helped us.
And what
quite a bit.
I would kind of suggest that you might want to craft 3 main questions that all board members ask someone, that basically, in terms of, a treasurer may ask, okay, in terms of working with superintendent on the budget, what was your experience, or with a candidate on the budget, what's your experience? Do you understand what I'm saying? So that it's not a kind of open getting into too many,
Can
Okay.
I just say something about references? Because it's pertinent to a former administrator in this district. A friend of mine that serves on a board of education in another community still finds it humorous to this day who this previous administrator was. Because there was a reason this administrator was not their CEO. And so references can often be misleading in that if they're trying to unload somebody or feel some obligation to find somebody employment, it's all roses and chocolates until you sign. So we have to, like you said, take references kind of with a grain of salt. And we have to be able to read between the lines. And we have to put stock in what we witness. And
You know, another thing we did, and I know it's not something we can do, but we took board members and union president and community members, and we went, our last 2 candidates, we went to each district. And we made a visit to that district. So we went to Detroit Public Schools, there was someone from Detroit, and we went to Dearborn 7. So we went and we talked to a lot of people within that district in that time. And like I said, it encompassed, it was a busload of us, and we all went. And so that's how some of the buy-in, how that happened, because it was more than just the board. It was a big decision. The board made the decision, but it was a lot of input from other people at that time. So it wasn't just calling a reference, we actually made site visits. We
And-
actually went
and-
on site.
And that
visits.
is, that is still a possibility, you can do that. I will tell you that very often, candidates will tell you, if I'm not the only candidate, you know, I really don't want you, because it's a lot of work for their district, for them, and if the board is not serious, so I can tell you that if you have 3, it's probably not gonna, they probably, be honest, they'll say, you know what, I can't be that strong of a candidate to ask people in my district to spend a day setting this up and, you know, doing all of this. That's the one, okay? Usually that happens after, it will happen when it's narrowed to 2, you're right, or when it's narrowed to 1. A couple of things that will very often happen, though, is that there is kind of a meet and greet for the candidates prior to, so that if there's community, or even to have an informal conversation. The other thing is normally that before the second interview, the candidates will request an opportunity to visit the district, to actually tour the district, to get a handle, and they'll talk. And sometimes they'll say, can I talk to the union leadership? That's usually we leave it up to them, but set that time aside. That would mean that a board member more than likely would need to escort them around, as opposed to, sometimes it's an employee plus a board member, but those are your choices of coming up. And as I said, once you decide you're going to do interviews, then I need to know a couple of more things of how you want that set up.
Marie, didn't, and I guess you may not know if you weren't there in the session, but at the MASB fall conference last year, I spoke with Dick about, the very strong likelihood of us needing superintendent searches, and I ended up sitting in on a workshop that he did, and
It was on the match thing, though, wasn't it?
Pro match?
no, it wasn't the pro match. He had stated that MASB no longer recommends site visits.
Yeah.
That was, if you remember, that
That
was
was
what
it.
I said at the very
That was the
beginning.
pro match? Okay.
And it was at the very beginning of the search that I said very often districts are not doing site visits because, one, they're not, you can find an awful lot of information out through the internet and through phone calls, and so the cost effectiveness of
Here's
it.
my question.
The other thing is, and this is the truth, there have been situations where you take 2 candidates, and one candidate, everybody in the district is very, they're all always very sincere, but they're, you hate to see the person leave, okay, and give them glowing reports. Then in another situation, second candidate, exactly the same thing, but they really wanted the person to leave. And know that if you say something negative, they're not going to leave. Third situation that sometimes occurs is that it comes out that, the person doesn't get the job because the people went and did a site visit and then they file some charges. So that's one of the reasons, because, it's getting to the point where how much violate, people aren't as open as they used to be because of a lot of the changes in the law.
What about,
That doesn't mean you can't do it, though.
what about doing if you did research on somebody,
Like Google their name?
Googled their name?
Why can't you do that?
Oh, you can do that.
I mean, if you can call it
Oh, you
references,
can do
why can't I
that.
Google
And-
someone?
Yeah, you can.
Public domain.
You don't like what you see. I'll put this.
How do you share that with the fellow board members?
I had,
Is that
well,
what
Could you ask that question to the candidate?
About negative publicity?
Oh, no. Oh, could you?
Sure.
As a question?
What if it's about something of a personal nature?
I'd have to know.
I'd probably
What
just
I
keep
know
a
is
more
a
professional
combination.
career.
I would have to know more about that.
Yeah, I
because,
think I would
I
just-
don't want to get into a.
But getting back to Teresa's question, go ahead, Teresa, finish answering.
because, to be honest, the interview, all 3 of them interviewed very well for me. All 3 of them scored very high for me, and if I was just to go on those scores, I would have a very difficult time making a decision. Then when I look at fit, I have my own personal opinions again about fit and how it would go with our community and stuff. and my perception of the candidates is swaying me in the direction that way. And then when I Googled a couple of their names, some things came up that I said right away, I don't know if we want to put ourselves in this scenario. And so is that something that I really should clarify with that candidate, or is it something that
It may be something that you want me to clarify with a candidate.
you could, I guess?
I've done that. I've asked about in the situation that it basically was that there were some, in one candidate, it wasn't a personal nature, it was professional. It was that a family was very upset with a decision the superintendent had made. It was a small town, and that family let everybody know that every time that person went for another interview. That person started their second interview off with, "Let me tell you about this. This has come up." So I mean, that's.
I mean, I can.
He's suggesting that board members
Maybe I
Google.
can talk to you
Yeah.
privately
You can talk to me.
explain to you what
What you think you saw?
right, and then you can
I'll.
address the board however you want to address
No,
it.
I
I
have to go
don't
home
care.
and
I'm
Google.
just.
Maybe we should Google the names.
But this is why I'm having a difficult decision, is because I kind of wish I hadn't.
And I will tell you this from personal experience that what you read in a newspaper or in an internet site may
Exactly.
not always be accurate.
I
Okay,
understand
yeah, believe that or
and
not.
that's why
So that's why it. But if that is something that comes up and that's an issue, then by all means it needs to be addressed in the way that we can that can legally, and the best. Depending on the situation, very often it's just, because if you found this information about somebody, I guarantee you that
Somebody else is.
someone
I'll
else
have it in
is.
an hour.
So and the internet goes back at least 20 years.
Well, there's
minimum.
three sides to every
So,
story.
exactly.
you're right.
You know,
So-
your
I
truth,
agree,
their
and that's
truth,
why I've
and
been
the real truth.
But
So
I
So,
just did- that
so,
was my
but if
dilemma,
it's,
and I
if it
just
makes
didn't
you
know how to address
uncomfortable,
that.
then you need more detail, and then you still make your judgment based on what the rest of the, what the rest of the story may or may not be.
And even someone mentioned about, even in an interview process, I didn't hold a lot of weight to I mean, the word student is going to be their first concern. And teaching in classes and being in a classroom, I think we know how busy a superintendent is, that they're not going to be able to spend every day in the classroom for 4 hours, just like our principals are too busy that they're not going to be able to spend 5 hours in every classroom, and because they got so much
Interviewing,
stuff to
you're
do in the
interviewing
building.
to impress,
Yeah,
so I mean-
so I don't take much weight into that when they say they're going to be in a classroom every day, because that's what they have principals to do,
And
is to guard their
sometimes
building.
that comes from lack of experience.
So if we can move on, Mr. Chair, I'll move that the Board of Education invite candidates 1, 2, and 4 for a second interview.
Support.
It's been moved by Mr. Thede. Was that supported by Ms. Funderburg?
You want to do a roll call vote?
Do we need to name them by name?
Yes.
Oh, sorry.
The candidate number 1 would be Dr. Paula Daniels. Candidate number 2 would be, is it Dr.?
No.
Jennifer Martin. And
Candidate
candidate
number
number 4
four.
would be, that's Dr. Charles Mooncatchy.
Munkachi, and for the record, those numbers were the order of the
Right.
interview
That's why I
process.
said it, right.
Yes.
Would you like a roll call vote, or?
I don't believe a roll call vote is necessary. Are there any questions?
I do have one. When do you need to have us either do we need to get together to make these questions up, or are we doing it individually and just shooting you an email? And if so, when are the deadlines?
Yeah, I was gonna say, do we need to do that? Do we want to do that before the motion or afterwards? Because we need to schedule when that interview will take place.
Why don't you go ahead and do the motion to invite for the interview, then we'll go, I don't,
Then
you
we'll
don't
have the
need to-
conversation
Right,
about
you don't
those.
need, yeah, you don't need a,
Is
you
that
don't
okay with you,
need the
Danielle?
date
Because
or
I have a
time.
couple
Yeah,
questions about scheduling as well.
Okay.
So do I.
Any further questions? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries 7-0. I'm going along with
Okay.
my board here.
We
The point that I want to make about scheduling, Marie, is, I know I am unavailable the week of the 13th. If we want to do a meeting, if we can get interviews done for the 9th, I don't know how board members and how you feel about that, Marie, or if we need to go to the 3rd week of May. We already have a board meeting on the 20th, so it would have to be a different night other than May 20th.
We don't have one on the 13th, that one got moved.
You want to give your 2 cents before we?
Yeah. Well, because
correct?
I thought we originally had put the week of the 13th, so that may be,
don't have one on
there
the
may be some, but if I can't
Yeah.
be here, I will have another consultant here. But the 9th, I mean, that's tight for it, if we're making it with fewer questions, and what I need to know then is quickly
Mhm.
what those,
Yeah.
what those areas
The
are going to
16th.
be at least.
Does anybody feel too rushed to do it for the 9th? Do you need us to bump it to later in the month?
I would. I need a little bit more time.
But, okay, and I'm be honest, because once I get down into the week of the 20th, I am booked solid through June, so, because I thought I had second interviews the week of the 13th, so,
That was on the original time frame, but then it got changed. Mhm. I'm home Friday if we want to do a Friday night board meeting, but,
But May 10?
no, the 17th.
Oh, I've got so much, I got like 3 different places I need. to
Because
be
then the
on that
awards
day.
banquet on the 16th.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yes, it is.
yeah, that's what you're going to start running into.
Yeah.
Well,
I hate to ask this, but would a Saturday work? Doing 3, because then you could get all 3 done the same day, so there isn't a time
I'm
lag.
game
in
for
it.
that, but again, it'd have to be the 18th.
I can do Saturday, the 18th. I can't do the 25th. That's Memorial Day weekend.
Yeah.
Saturday, the 18th, and then run them, one
Board
after
members?
another. Will that work?
Open on the 18th.
That gives you more time.
What time?
If we don't have any other choice, I have to make it work.
What did we looking?
Saturday, the 18th.
I just gotta make it work, I guess.
I'm off.
You're off?
You got a board.
Everybody available that date?
Danielle might not be.
But okay.
I'm sorry?
I'm not, but okay. I'll
No.
just have to figure it out.
No,
Just
we
go back up
want,
to the
I,
meeting.
I really want to have a full board. So if that date doesn't work, then we'll find one that does.
We can go
Yeah,
back to the
9th
9th.
is too
I'll just
early.
move what I have to do. If you want to do the 9th.
That's
If
what
that
I'm-
works better
I
for
mean-
everybody.
What does?
What
If-
time are
if
you
you-
talking?
The board decides. It makes no
Tamika,
difference
you
to
got
me.
some-
I'm open all day, so.
I'm just saying, if it works better for everybody to be on the 9th, I'll just make some changes on my schedule. And we can just make it on the 9th if that's
Yes, I
what
gotta
y'all
make
want.
it work, I guess.
The question again is what you're going to have is
I'm
the
still in
timing.
session.
If
I'll
you're
call you in a
doing
minute.
three meetings,
Mm-hmm.
and you're going to do them all in one day, if you're starting at 6, you're going to be interviewing.
Well, we were just gonna do 7 questions, right?
Yeah, I mean, quick question.
6 at night? You
Oh,
talking
I
about
was thinking
6?
10 o'clock in the morning.
No, if
No,
we
no,
did a
no. I
Thursday.
said if you're doing it on the
okay,
9th.
on Saturday? I don't think so.
No, if you're, no. I'll be wherever you need me to be, but I'm
confused.
saying,
Yeah, I'd
even
rather do it
7
online.
questions, figure those, they're gonna take almost well, unless you wanna set a time limit
Yeah, I
and keep
say
people
set
to
time
it
limit.
that.
Maybe they get 2-3 minutes per question if that.
Oh, you
I
know, on
think-
Saturday?
I
No.
think we need to keep the time
Yeah.
limits on the questions because
Yeah.
I know all of them were guilty of.
Yeah. I mean, if
Sounding
we
a
if
little
we
longer
have
than
7
they should've.
questions and they got a
Well,
clock,
tell
I
them
mean,
they get 30 minutes, period.
30
And
minutes.
if they use up their 30 minutes and
It's a
don't
second
complete the interview,
question,
Yeah,
then
this
we
is the second
take,
interview.
Yeah,
we
I don't
have the
think we
right
do a
to take
9-part
that into
question, yeah.
consideration.
Okay, you wanna do a 30-minute follow-up interview. Now, let me, again, go back. 30-minute follow-up interview, we can set whatever time you want. I'd put some time in between to give you kind of a break. But my question is, do you want the same questions to all 3 candidates, or is it different questions to different candidates?
Same, I would
Same
say the same.
questions.
Same
same
questions,
3,
okay?
Same 7.
I'm sorry, did we agree, and I'm sorry,
As to the date, no.
I took that call because it came from a coded number from my family. So I'm sorry I took a call during the meeting.
I didn't even know.
Well, they're They're just concerned because I usually text or something when it's this late. Did we decide on the 9th?
I don't think you decided yet.
You don't
Oh,
want to do
I'm
that?
sorry.
You can do it if you want.
Because I know
I know
Tamika
it's
said
a
she
bad
could
day
move
for
her
me.
thing.
We can do
It's a
the
bad
9th.
day
I
for,
can move it, but
The 9th of May?
I've missed
The
every
9th,
PAC
next week?
meeting.
yes.
Okay, the 9th of May, the 9th of May gives, now, please remember, the 9th of May gives us, today is
Gives
that's
us
a week. That's
less
less
than
than
a
a week to get to get the questions from you, for me to go back. I mean,
Yeah, we might.
it depends on how fast
we'll
you're
go
going to
that
work.
Saturday.
I can
What
work
about
pretty fast,
Well, let's do it
but,
Saturday.
Let's just do the Saturday.
Danielle's got.
Okay, then I'll just have to figure it out on Saturday. I'm fine.
what time would be good?
I
Start
say,
early?
I say
We can
start
get
early.
it, if I can get out of here by 2:30, I'm good.
So we
And
start-
start
just
at
start
10
early.
a.m., 30-minute
Well,
meetings.
see, I would have started at 7:30 in the morning,
Oh, no,
so
I'm
you
not
guys are
getting up
good.
Not on Saturday.
Not on Saturday.
I say start at 9.
Start at
9?
9. I could do
9.
9.
Okay,
Pick a 9.
We could do
Are
9
you
if y'all want to do
insane?
9. I could do 10, even better.
do you want,
We're up at 5. at my
9:30?
house.
9:30.
9:30, okay.
I hear
so-
9:30.
Okay, 9:30 is good. I hope I don't forget.
Now, what date are we talking again?
Saturday, the 18th
May
of May,
18th.
okay, May 18th.
9:30 a.m.
9:30, 10:30, 9:30.
9:30.
10:15.
10:15, and then 11 o'clock. Do we need 15 minutes in between each interview?
Why not?
Not when they
At
have.
least 10 to kind of tabulate. Right?
Okay, yeah,
Okay.
so, well, let's schedule it 15, and if they're here and ready to proceed,
Does the board have a preference as to the order of the candidates?
Nope.
No,
You can do that.
I say
Thanks.
get in. Pull it from a hat.
Okay, and what I will do is, obviously, if one drops or says that they're no longer interested, I will, we'll take the earlier time and just use the 2 time slots. I'll be in touch
Sounds good.
with you.
Okay.
The other question I had was, we're going to do 7 questions. Are the candidates getting the questions ahead of time or not?
No.
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 Okay, and you'll probably get an email from me that kind of confirms everything, just
and are you gonna clarify
So-
the salary issue on that one candidate?
I am going to clarify the salary issue with all 3 candidates again.
When you confirm.
When
it.
I confirm it, that the salary is within within that parameter that you
Okay.
originally gave me, correct?
Yes.
At $10,000.
And are we advertising this second interview in any way, shape?
To the public?
It will have to be posted.
Oh, I know posted, but
Yeah.
I'll call the
Did we get it in the
superintendent's
News
office
Herald?
and direct it to be put out. I'll call Jackie Harrison Martin at the News Herald and ask her to run, I don't know that she will or not.
Keep it
Get it
live.
on
The
our
little
website.
paper's not publishing, and good luck on our website. Good
well, I
luck
mean
with it.
the
board.
cable channel.
Yeah, we can notify Roger. Oh, thank you.
I know, that's what I'm saying. I mean, there could be a 5
Put it
minute.
on the
Okay.
community cable.
I get on it now.
18.
Can you contact Mr. Cato, Steve? Thank you. That way it'll go on the community channel too.
For none.
And with that 15-minute gap.
For our
we
non-school
could allow a
community,
5-minute, if they have any questions to go through the board.
15-minute gap or 10? I thought we said
Oh, like 9:30, 10:15.
Yeah, she did this 15-minute, and then if
Oh,
people are
15?
ready, and if the candidates are here and people are ready to proceed early, just when we do the posting and when you notify them, just say it's an approximate. That way, we're not locked into a 15-minute recess. I stuck to the recess times tonight because we had published those times, but if we say approximate,
I have one more piece, okay? Normally, we'll allow the same process for questions from the audience if they are here.
Can we keep it to 5 minutes?
Yeah, I would think we probably can keep it to 5 minutes.
Yeah, with the recess, yeah. Yeah, give the opportunity of the citizens to talk. They direct it through the board, not to the candidate, correct?
Pardon?
yeah,
would
would be
direct it through
filtered.
you?
They would do the paper the same way as
Right.
we offered it
Okay.
this time, same thing with the comment sheets, and I don't believe we had any from the
Right.
first set of interviews, so, but we would do the same thing. And do you want me to have, what we could do is we can vary the comment form to an address. If you want that, some boards want names and addresses.
For,
on
for
the-
anybody that
on
wants
the
to put in
comment sheet.
comments.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
They don't have to live in a city to have a
No,
comment.
no, they may not
But
live
it'd
in
be
the
nice.
city, they may
No,
not
but
be.
and
Nice
they,
to have
Nice
the
to know
address.
if they live
Yeah.
in the
it'd be
city,
nice to know who we're hearing
That's up to
from.
you
Yeah.
if you
be
want,
nice
if
to
they
know.
want
But
that to be
anybody has the
added
right to
on.
speak.
I want to know.
Just like if I thought we had the legal right to say so, I'd say we would have it for these next round of interviews that there was nobody sitting in the audience using smartphones and tablets. But we don't have it's not you folks but the Open Meetings Act precludes us from making that kind of
We got a motion to
stipulation.
adjourn.
As long as our consultant is done,
I'm done.
you're done, then yes, the chair will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Support.
It's been moved by Ms. Funderburg, supported by Ms. Buckley. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, this meeting is adjourned at 11:10 PM. Thank you.